It's game week, and one of Auburn's key additions this offseason, he's back.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me as he does every single Monday, that is the Lindsay Crosby of AuburnDaily.com, as well as a million other places. Lindsay, we'll talk about who we're most excited to see in Auburn's season opener this Saturday. Happy game week, everyone. It also sounds like Auburn has some positions that are a little banged up, but all in all, this roster is very healthy. How does that impact the season and specifically this weekend? But let's start things off talking a little bit about what happened this weekend. They went through like a mock game, almost like a dress rehearsal type thing, which makes sense. Go through the pregame meal, go through the pregame walkthrough. So that way, when you're doing an actual game, you've done it before. Very routine, very standard. But the key takeaway of this to me was talking to multiple folks. It sounds like KeAndre Lambert-Smith was back, no limitations, and it sounds like he was very effective in getting open and being productive against Auburn's defense.
Yeah, I've talked a lot about the receivers and the chemistry and understanding what's going to happen and how you're going to do things. And as talented as this group of freshman receivers are, they're probably two or three of the most talented receivers from a physical perspective Auburn's ever had on campus, right?
Maybe.
Having a veteran who has done this for multiple years at a high level against quality opponents, right? I mean, he came from Penn State, so he's played your Ohio States. He's played your Michigans. He's played some of the better non-SEC teams in the country. Having that guy is a big deal so that you're not counting on guys who were in high school 6 months ago. I mean, it's a situation where you can go through all the dress rehearsals you want. The cadence of Saturday is not going to be completely unfamiliar, right? Because you did your pregame meal, you did your Tiger walk, you did all your stuff. But getting on the field in that atmosphere with that crowd, probably the largest crowds these guys have ever played in front of, playing against other college athletes, it has a way of getting to you a bit. And getting KLS back at full strength, and from what we heard, pretty dominant, I think goes a long way towards making sure you have a good season opener on Saturday.
Yeah. Seems like he was really effective on third downs, and so I can't wait to see what the balance looks like for targets on Saturday, and we'll kind of get a little bit of a taste of what it might look like this season. But I mean, that's kind of what we've heard about KeAndre Lambert-Smith when he's been, full go, and Robert Lewis, both veteran guys that were productive at their previous stops, but both of them always get tied to the production on third down, which I think is clearly important. Like, you want your go-to guys to be effective and consistent on third down, because that's where Auburn was so bad offensively a year ago. There were a lot of issues with Auburn's offense.
Yeah.
But if you could have fixed what they did on third down, that fixes a lot of things. So to me, like, who is going to be the guy on third down this past Saturday for the mock thing? And it sounds like it was very light. They weren't hitting too hard or anything like that, but it sounds like it was KeAndre Lambert-Smith. And then we've heard in multiple scrimmages throughout fall camp that third down guy has been Robert Lewis out of the slot. We're expecting the starting three wide receivers to be Cam Coleman, KeAndre Lambert-Smith, and Robert Lewis. And I mean, you just talk about trios that can impact the game, like, holy cow. But yeah, Robert Lewis and KeAndre Lambert-Smith, how they're used to kind of support each other, complement is the word I'm looking for. How they're going to be used to complement each other, particularly on third down. That's something I'm looking for specifically on Saturday.
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be, what I'm going to be looking for is when Auburn needs to make a play, right? How much trust do they have in the sheer talent of a guy like a Cam Coleman versus the veteran knowledge of, like, hey, we don't want to settle for a 50-50 jump ball, which is probably against anybody you'll see on Saturday, probably a 60-40 for Cam Coleman, a 70-30 or whatever. We would rather get a guy that knows the tips and tricks of how to get open. He's used to playing on a college field versus a high school field.
Yeah.
Again, both him and Robert Lewis have done this for multiple seasons. And so that's, to your point, that's probably going to be third down conversions, right? But it may end up being, maybe a fourth down, maybe a something where it's a second down, but it's makeable. To me, it's similar, but a little bit different from yours. But where do you go when you need to find a completion?
Yeah.
You need to make a play, because I feel like those two guys are going to be, I could see more first down work, second down work for guys like Cam Coleman, who are explosive, who, if they don't convert it, that's fine. You have another shot. But when you've got to get it done, you go with the experience of one of these two guys. That's what I'll be watching for from the offense. And then also just seeing how they work with Peyton Thorne. We talked about last year. I feel like one of the issues you had was he never really was comfortable knowing what the receiver was going to do in any particular situation. And you would think, him being a multi-year veteran, these guys being multi-year veterans, they're going to be on the same page as far as reading the defense and knowing what the adjustment is for each one of them to make. And again, something I feel like when you have more experience like they do, that's probably going to come a little bit easier and more natural. So that's really going to be the focus of my offensive part of watching, is going to be on those pivotal downs.
Yeah. Yeah, and just, we talk about how it's new for everybody. Obviously, KLS didn't go through spring here, but it sounds like he's hit the ground running, and it's all these freshmen. Robert Lewis, this is a different role than what he did at his previous stop at Georgia State.
He was a lot of outside work there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did 611 snaps out wide, just 141 in the slot. So, he's played it, but that wasn't where he got his production a year ago. So, this will be an adjustment for him, too. All of this on Saturday certainly needs to be a tune-up for every receiver in this receiver room. And I think it will. I'm going to drop a conversation that I had with Coach Maynor, who is Alabama A&M's head coach. I spoke to him late last week, so that'll be on a show later this week. But, he's aware. He's aware of these new receivers, and he's aware of the new offensive scheme, and obviously said great things about Coach Freeze and what he does offensively. So they're going to be aware of kind of the newness on the offensive side of the ball for the Tigers, and we'll certainly see how Auburn kind of counteracts all of that. So, but yeah, KeAndre Lambert-Smith, it sounds like he really stood out in this mock game that they did on Saturday, which should be great because, he injured that knee. Doesn't sound like it was a major thing, but they were just super, super careful with it. So he is back and ready to rock and roll. Auburn's got a few positions that appear to be a little banged up. Does that impact Saturday? Should it? We discuss in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Lindsay, today's show is brought to you by our friends. It's the best mobile game out there. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Can you imagine using your phone for anything other than playing Ultimate College Football Head Coach, Lindsay?
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed what you said. I was playing Ultimate Football Head Coach on my phone right now. I'm sorry.
I knew you were. I knew you were. Yep. It's an amazing game and simulation where you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being a head coach of a program, Lindsay? Can you imagine that? I cannot. Being a head coach of a program would be a big deal to me. And what is great is that Ultimate College Football Head Coach lets me be the head coach of a program and make the decisions myself as I take us to a championship. I love that. Yep. And it's completely free, no ads, 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Auburn listeners. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, one word, LOCKEDONCFB, inside the game store, and you receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk so you can get your team off to a strong start. You can go to their website, ultimate-cfb.com, or just type in Ultimate College Football Head Coach in your phone's app store to begin your coaching legacy today. Lindsay, it seems like the defensive line for the Auburn Tigers. I mean, it seems like there's kind of some bumps and bruises. I don't think there's anything substantial going on up front, but I do know some guys have been asked to play a little bit more, specifically on Saturday in this mock game. And a text that I got Saturday evening said that Bobby Jameson-Travis, who's a guy that we really haven't talked about, has had an incredible last week or so because he's been asked to play more and have a larger role and kind of what this rotation might be. Sounds like a lot of it has been at nose tackle. And so we'll see, like, once Isaiah Rakes and Jason Jones are good to go, which I think they both will be on Saturday. But like, does Bobby Jameson-Travis get more reps in a game than we actually thought that he would? I don't know. I mean, you always say, I'll let you say it, but the depth is on the defensive line. I mean, we just keep hearing these different names pop up, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, between nose tackle and defensive tackle, you were looking at
say what you always say. Say what you always say.
6 or 7 guys, and you were like, how do we have room for all these guys? But depth will always work itself out. And
put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, the offensive line, the defensive line, these are positions where you're just colliding with other giant bodies 60 times a game, 70 times a game. And so BJT having a great fall camp, I think gives you the ability, Jones gets back, Rakes gets back. You can lower the workload a bit for them, not push them too far, kind of keep them on a pitch count, right? To use the baseball analogies I always love to do.
Sure.
And rotate in Bobby Jameson-Travis, making sure you keep everybody fresh. And it also gives you an idea how they do facing somebody who's not their teammate. Right? Sure. Because, I mean, you can do all the mock games you want, the scrimmages, the fall camp, and things like that, but it's a little bit different in that environment against somebody who's not wearing Auburn on their jersey. So,
right.
The good thing is, I feel like this is a position, the interior of the defensive line, where you have a lot of guys that you feel comfortable playing in a game, but nobody where you feel like we have to play this guy or we're going to lose, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like defensive end. If you don't have Keldrick Falk for a game, I'm a little more concerned about what happens than if you take out any one of these nose or defensive tackles and have to work around them.
I'm there with you. Yeah. I think if you had to have a position group, I mean, where like if 2 guys fall, like the interior D line is probably the deepest. And also, like, I don't think the drop off from your best interior D lineman to your 3rd or 4th interior D lineman is that noticeable. I'm looking at it right now. It's like Gage Keys, Joe Carter, Philip Bleedy, Isaiah Rakes, Jason Jones. Like, I actually don't even know what order I would put, which is kind of probably a point. If you talk about edge, like if I think we feel so much better about the pass rush now, but if like McLeod goes down or Kieran Crawford goes down or Keldrick, not all of them, just one of them.
Yeah.
It changes how you feel about that entire situation. So yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And games like this, obviously these kind of, I'm not going to call it a warm-up game. I mean, obviously this game does count. This game does matter.
Sure.
But a game that's not expected to be as close as many others on the schedule gives you an opportunity to work these guys back in and make sure they're at 100% and that they're able to perform as well as they need to. Because if you can hold somebody out, same thing. You don't feel the need that you have to throw this guy in this game. You can hold him out for the next game. So I think this is the best case scenario for a banged up position group, to your point.
Yeah.
And now that I kind of think about it, I also don't know what order I'd put these guys in, because you can see situations or kind of packages where you would have different guys based on what you want to do. Like maybe you just want to have beef and you've got Jason Jones out there, next to some of these other massive guys like a Trill Carter or somebody. And then maybe you want 2 more traditional defensive tackle, smaller guys who can move and penetrate. And you have a lot of mix and matching you can do here. And I think that helps.
I mean, I'll rank them real quick. I would go Philip Bleedy, Jason Jones, Isaiah Rakes, Gage Keys, Trill Carter. That would be my order.
Bobby Jameson-Travis?
I'd probably I might put him above Trill Carter.
Okay. Say that was kind of the thing. It's like we're not even 100% sure, and we're like, we can move guys around. I think that's a good thing. So if you have a banged up position group, there's this. I think you could get.
I'm sorry, Lindsay, to cut you off, but like you also, we could be 3 weeks into the season, and the freshman Malik Blockton is third on that list. Like that would not shock me. Based off of what we've heard, it sounds like he's really getting after it. I can't wait to see how many actual reps he gets, because it sounds like he's going to get a few, which is super great.
Heck, we've heard a little bit of talk about guys like Zykevious Walker, who's been around for a little bit. I mean, there's so many names that can contribute, and what situations guys get in, maybe like, does Trill Carter get put in short yardage situations? That'll be a tell, because it's not a role you kind of would think he would be in.
Zykevious Walker, like he played with like Derek Brown, right? He's
been here for a while. He's listed as a junior.
It feels like he's been here so much longer than that.
Yeah. True freshman in 2020. I think, if I remember right, I think he checked in on a goal line package for Bo over the top as like an extra blocker. And so I'm kidding. Zykevious, we love you, buddy. You're
was
great.
He part of Punt Bama Punt? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think he was. Yeah. I think he was. Kind of help get that initial push so they could block the punt. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. No, we're joking. But yeah, I mean, there's so many guys, which is intriguing and obviously super, super exciting. All right. Who are the guys we are most excited to see this weekend? And one of them actually comes from, some stuff that we heard from the mock game that happened this Saturday. Before we move into that, I'm making sure that we didn't miss anything from Saturday. It sounds like the scout team has been developed. And so, of course, those are tough conversations that the coaching staff has to have with some of these players, because, I mean, let's face it, a lot of these guys on this roster, they've been the best player on their team for their entire life, and now they're being told that you got to be a scout team. So, we're not going to go into the details of that. I mean, I think everybody's pretty aware of who the starters are and who the two deep is, and so you can probably guess to some extent on who's on that. But
I am very curious about the quarterback in the scout team.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it's Walker. It's Walker, just because it was the fourth quarterback a year ago, which was Hank.
Yep.
So I assume that'll be Walker this year, and we'll see. We'll see kind of what that development looks like. It worked out well for Hank. I got a feeling it's going to work out well for Walker as well. So, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, in like today's version of college football, like who you put on your scout team matters, because if you tick them off, they may leave. Yeah, it's such a wild thing. And so, like, as a coaching staff, you've got to be really careful, I would guess, with how you handle those conversations.
Yeah, just being mindful of the stakes here and how this is different in college football now than it used to be. Like, you're not afraid to go to a Dylan Gentry and say, hey, buddy, we need you on the scout team. Like, you're not concerned about that, but you're not going to go to Bryce Kane and say that, because it's just being mindful of the position, the value of the player, and what the role you think they may have going forward is. Yeah,
the interesting ones to me are like guys that I don't see a path to playing time this year or next year.
Right.
But you want to be a part of your program. Like, I think the world of DeAndre Carter and Favor Edwin, the true freshman offensive lineman. But like, I think that's the first time I've said either of their names like this year. It's like since they signed and were on campus. And like those guys, it's just, they're so good. But like their path to playing time, like they'd have to really, really take a big step forward to impress as probably redshirt freshmen next year. Yeah. Can they do it? Yes. Yes. They have all the talent in the world to do it. It's just, it's a
Do you want them in your program? Yes, you want them in your program.
100%.
They're incredibly talented players, and they absolutely could be starters. And
they see this offensive line classes coming in behind them. So I mean, it's just it's an interesting dynamic when those are just two examples or a position group that kind of came to my mind when having this conversation. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with all of that. All right, who are we most excited to see this Saturday in Auburn's opener? We tell you next, right here. I'll tell you right now. Mine's DeMarcus Riddick. I'll tell you why. Next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Lindsay, today's show is brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Can you imagine not having energy, feeling tired in the afternoon, Lindsay?
I'm a father of 2, so yes, but not anymore since I've started taking 5 Hour Energy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You can use 5 Hour Energy after lunch, a little pick-me-up. if there's a to-do list that you need to tackle that you're feeling a little kind of unmotivated for before a workout, you're
Shots
watching
at the gym. It's great.
Sure. I'm not going to stop you. If you need to get in the zone with zero sugar, a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore, like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry. I bet that's very good. They've got all sorts of them. So on the site, you've got the option to even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. That's almost like a month worth of energy just showing up at your door. You choose the flavors and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and gets a 5-Hour Energy product today, use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all one word, LOCKEDONCFB, to receive 20% off your order. It's only valid till September 30th on one order, cannot be used with other promotions. So be sure to check out all of that at 5hourenergy.com. Use code LOCKEDONCFB. Lindsay, who are you most excited to see on Saturday? We'll get to that in a moment. Mine is DeMarcus Riddick. Mine's DeMarcus Riddick because I haven't explicitly asked this because I think it was implied. I didn't want to pry too much, but talking to different folks and them describing what DeMarcus Riddick is doing, he can't do all of the things that they're telling me about from the one position. Like, he can't be as effective as a pass rusher as he was 2 scrimmages ago, just at linebacker. So it's like, all right, they're playing him at linebacker. I think there's a chance they're going to play him at edge. Like, where does DeMarcus Riddick play the most on Saturday? Is it with the ones? Is it while the game is still competitive? Does he come in with the 2s and you see him at linebacker? You see him on the, at the edge? Do they kind of put him as, if they go dime, as a DB almost, where he's close to the line of scrimmage? You could do all of that with DeMarcus Riddick. And that's kind of some of the stuff I've heard from different people, but I've never asked specifically what position he's in. But yeah, he's doing all of these things. It just sounds like, okay, I can't wait to see where DeMarcus Riddick is on the field on Saturday.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as kind of the voice of the fan on this show, right? The freshman wide receivers are absolutely, and it's funny, I just spent half of the first segment talking about the veterans in the room, right? But these freshman wide receivers are so incredibly talented. And Cam Coleman has, rightfully so, sucked up all the oxygen in the room. I mean, just he is the most dynamic freshman we've ever seen. Looks like one of the most talented receivers to ever come through Auburn. What Perry Thompson and Bryce Cain get to do on Saturday is going to be very interesting to me, because Perry Thompson, very much from a physical standpoint, is very similar to Cam Coleman, that bigger bodied frame that's like ideal for the outside. But I think Bryce Cain might be more interesting to me. 5'10", 150. He's a smaller guy, one of the fastest players on the roster. We've heard about, obviously, you think of slot immediately. We've also heard talk about him being a returner this year, using that speed from a punt and kick return perspective. And so how much Auburn decides, it's probably with the 2s, maybe even after that, but how much Auburn finds ways to get balls in the hands of Bryce Cain, to me, is going to be really interesting, because we've seen every couple of years, it feels like in college football, there's that smaller stature guy with blazing speed that some coach just says, you know what? I'm going to get in my bag and I'm going to find ways to put the ball in this dude's hands. And he just goes nuts. Yeah. And you can see some different ways where a coach could just decide, you know what? I'm going to find a way to give Bryce Cain the ball 5 times in this second half of a blowout, and we're going to see what he does with them. And there's a possibility, based on just his sheer athletic talent, that he explodes in 5 touches.
Yeah, I'm curious to see exactly how he's used. Like, I assume it's in the slot. I mean, 5'10", 150,
which is very small.
Yeah, I mean, just like the guy we're expecting to start at the slot, Robert Lewis, is 5'10", 188 is what Auburn has him listed. I mean, that's a pretty noticeable difference. Now, I've stood next to Bryce Cain, like right behind him when he was going through drills. Like, he doesn't look 150 to me. Like he's a, if that's the case, he's a very stout 150. But I wouldn't be shocked if this guy adds, a ton of weight over the course of his career and looks like Robert Lewis when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's probably what they want to do with him. But as a freshman,
Sam Jackson, 5'10", 187, similar idea. You probably got to college 150, 160 and added weight.
Perhaps. Yeah, especially if he went the quarterback route. Sure. Yeah, so Bryce Cain's a good one. Bryce Cain is a good one because also, like, it goes back to the DeMarcus Riddick thing. It's like, okay, how early is he used in the game? Like, is he subbed in the second drive on Saturday?
Is he out there for the opening kickoff? I mean, like, we don't know.
Sure.
The special teams aspect of that could be interesting as well.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, and his name's been listed in the return game for sure. So, yeah, Bryce Cain's a good one. I mean, you could say any receiver, and it's like you could make a point. They're all going to be so. I mean, they all signify such a shift in Auburn's like offensive mentality culturally. You could say anybody, any pass catcher on this roster, and I think it'd be a good one. So
I do think a fallback here, and you touched on it briefly when you mentioned Riddick and how he's going to get used.
Yeah,
you've got 3 freshman bucks, and Amaris Williams, Jamonta Waller, Joe Phillips, and we've heard different things about some of these guys. You're going to need help at that position next year. Jalen McLeod is definitely gone. Kieran Crawford has a big year. You may see him try the NFL. How do you integrate those guys early? Who gets playtime? Who doesn't? In what situations? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, my guess is you see Amaris Williams way more than the other two because I think he's big enough to play end when Keldrick isn't at end or if he's not on the field. But yeah, we don't know. We don't fully know how all that's going to play out. So 100%, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun day on Saturday. Lindsay, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball, kind of the hub for everything. The Braves writing, bravestoday.com, the Auburn writing, auburndaily.com, and the MLB recap, First Pitch, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, that is by far my favorite baseball show. It should be yours as well. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Check out thebarnauburn.com. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.